looking at Luke, leadership lessons from Luke. Now, I went through Luke and I couldn't find any stories on crypto. I just couldn't find it. However, there was something that jumped out at me. There was no metaverse, I'll tell you. There was a passage in Luke 6 from 37 to 42. And it's titled Judging Others. And I thought that it was really appropriate to what we were talking about today, because obviously we've spoken today about a lot of failures in the crypto world, right? In the NFT space, in the metaverse. We've spoken about failures, and there can be a tendency to judge people. Like we said, we don't know all of the stories. We don't know. We're only drawing from what we know and how we can learn to be better leaders. We're not judging these people at all. Who knows what they're going through? Who knows what the real story is? And so I just thought it would be really appropriate for us to end reading this passage, because I actually feel like there's a few different messages in here for us. But first of all, do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For the measure you use, it will be measured against you. For the measure you use will be measured against you. We speak about, judging all these people. Don't judge, because we all make mistakes. We're going to get caught up in it. But I also like for the measure you use will be measured out for you. Are we just trying to create some scheme to make a quick buck from the people that we're providing a service to? Or are we actually providing value to them? I know that my clients know that I'm there for them way beyond the payment that they give me. They know that I don't limit my time with them. They know that I'm there for them. I'm living and breathing their businesses almost as much as they are. And because I'm generous with my time, they're always also generous back to me as their coach. He also told them this parable. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? I kind of thought this was kind of important, because we spoke about crypto. We spoke about, going and investing in something that you don't actually know what you're investing in. Well, let's make sure we know what we're investing in. Otherwise, it's just literally the blind leading the blind. And Jesus spoke against that. But otherwise, you'll both fall into a pit. Well, if you went and blindly invested money in crypto, that's on you. A student is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. I kind of feel like that speaks to the Mark Zuckerberg thing, that he was the student that became the teacher, and now he's trying to become a student again, but who knows, maybe the next platform or whatever will end up taking over him. I feel like we can't get stuck in this mode of thinking that we're at the top. We're the teacher. We're the all knowledgeable one. We can't get stuck in that spot, because the world is changing and we need to continue to learn. And then it ends with this. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take the speck out of your eye," when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take out the plank from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. As we have touted a number of times before on this show, we're not here to judge those people. We are trying to learn from these things of how we can be better. And I hope that you have been able to learn across, the last almost 2 hours now. It's been a long one. I hope you've been able to learn over that time of how looking at yourself. You can self-reflect of what you can learn from these situations rather than judging others. Let me open up. Dr. Rod, Erin, do you have any comments?
No, I think I'm pretty well exhausted on this. I agree with you. It is pretty hard to find any references anywhere in the Bible that you can apply directly to the context that we're talking about. But, the book of Luke and much of the rest of the Bible focuses on how we are to behave regardless of our context or situation. And I think as Christians, we just need to have an awareness that God has expectations of us in terms of how we relate to others and how we behave regardless of the context.
That's good. Erin?
I love it. I think you guys have said it all. I think they're wonderful principles to be living by, and I think a lot of what you've been speaking about, I'll be implementing a lot more for myself in the coming weeks as well. So, I don't think you can go wrong when you're following a Bible passage.
Let me speak specifically to the psychologist in you then. This whole concept of speck of sawdust in someone else's and log in our own eye. Why is it so easy for us to judge other people? Actually, going back to the Sam Bankman-Friedman thing that you said, like he was judging all the other platforms for doing the very thing he was doing. Now, whether he did that intentionally or ignorantly, why is it that we are so blind to our own things and so easier to see faults in others?
It's a good question. I mean, one of the mechanisms is probably about how our egos function. So if you take, classic psychological theory, we have three parts to how our minds work. We have our unconscious, so, an area of our minds that we're actually not totally aware of, where there's a lot of stuff that's sort of stored. We have something that's called an ego, and that ego is designed really to kind of protect us and also to kind of mediate between us and the outside world. And then we have something that's called a superego, which is all about sort of social constraints and laws and society at large, and that aspect. And given that we are, fallen human beings, it tends to be easy for us to deceive ourselves, to have really quite large blind spots in this unconscious part of our mind. And it's also, I think there's also just a propensity within human beings to just choose the easy way out. And often it's just easier, like emotionally, to blame someone else rather than to fully reflect and take on the responsibility for our actions and all of the emotions and all of the weight that comes with that. And so I think that that's a big part of it.
What happens in, the one thing that let me just talk about me. Let me talk about my father. I love my father. But when we get around family dinners, it really frustrates me because he just tells these long-winded, useless, pointless stories that were kind of nothing to do with what we're talking about. Love you, Dad. Okay. And one day I had this revelation that, because it just irks me inside whenever he starts going on around. I'm like, and then I realized I was at an event with some friends and I'm like, I do the same thing. Why is it that the thing that we actually don't like in ourselves is and I would kind of justify that I'm always on point, even though it may be a little long-winded or whatever, like whatever. But I know that secretly I got frustrated with my dad, or subconsciously I got frustrated with my dad because it was something I don't like about in myself that I wasn't even aware of. How can we be more aware of those things, or how does that play out?
There's a lot there. It's probably it's a very long answer to, you know, learn how to develop the skill of self-reflection. But I think a lot of it starts with intention, the intention to be honest with ourselves and to be open to receiving feedback. And then it's about, you know, trusting relationships and having individuals in our life that we're able to go to and ask them for, you know, truthful feedback about ourselves. So yep, our own intentions are a lot of it, and our relationship with others as well. I think is really important.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, you've just watched an excerpt from the On the Cube Leadership podcast. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If it challenged your leadership or inspired you in some way, put a comment below. And if you want to watch the full episode or more content like this, check out our channel. And hey, consider subscribing while you're there.